Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm planning revenge at my own wedding. It started 2 years ago when my brother got married. My brother is the peacekeeper in our family. He's 5 years older than me. When he said he was getting married, I was excited. His fiancée was from a wealthy family. She had expectations. We welcomed her into our family. The wedding planning started quickly. She sent fancy invitation cards with strict dress code instructions. Everything had to match their wedding colors, burgundy and gold. My parents bought new outfits. I hunted down a burgundy dress. Cousins flew in from 3 different states with coordinated outfits. Before the wedding, we gathered for the rehearsal dinner. I helped my aunt with her corsage when I heard my brother's bride talking. She told her maid of honor, our family wouldn't follow simple instructions because we never take things seriously. When the maid of honor mentioned we were dressed right, the bride said she wasn't expecting us to take the wedding seriously, thinking we'd show up in jeans. I ignored it, but these comments spread through our family. My mom cried and my dad was angry. We agreed to show up, look good, and make my brother's day special. The wedding was beautiful. Our family dressed perfectly in burgundy and gold. We smiled in photos, danced, and gave toasts. My parents gave an expensive gift. I helped fix last-minute details. 1 month later, the photos and videos were ready. The bride posted a 3-minute highlight reel on social media. Something was missing. I watched that video 5 times before realizing what was wrong. There wasn't a shot of our side of the family. The only exception was a 3-second clip of my parents with my brother and his wife. Everyone else from our family was erased. Cousins who flew in, not there. My aunt who helped with decorations, gone. Me who spent hours helping with wedding favors, nowhere. I thought maybe the full album would include us. I texted her and asked for pictures with us siblings because I wanted to frame one. Hours later, she told me they never took those pictures. I remembered posing for those photos. I remembered the photographer telling us where to stand and how to smile. I remembered fixing my brother's boutonniere before the shot. I texted back asking if she was sure, explaining I remembered taking them after the ceremony by the rose garden. She said I was confused and they didn't have time. I let it go for a while. 6 months passed. During a family dinner, I brought it up again. I told her I was looking through my phone and noticed I didn't have good pictures from the wedding with all us siblings. I asked if she had any to share. She looked at me and asked what pictures I was talking about. That's when I knew this was deliberate. She erased our family from her wedding memories. That night, I made a decision. I had been dating my partner for 3 years. Within 2 months, we were engaged. Within 4 months, we set a date and started planning. I hired the best photographer and videographer. We had a private meeting where I told them my situation. I asked the videographer to make my sister-in-law feel like the center of attention. I wanted them to follow her around and make her think she was getting tons of coverage. But in the final edit, I didn't want her to appear once. The videographer nodded. When he asked why, I told him I was returning a favor. I didn't plan to invite her originally, just my brother. Somehow, she found out about the wedding. During a family dinner 3 weeks ago, she cornered me in the kitchen. She told me she had to work the day before and after my wedding, but should still make it. I was shocked. She assumed she was invited. I told her the Airbnb was booked, whether she was there or not. So now she's coming. To make myself feel better, I did something petty. I spelled her name wrong on the wedding invitation. Not obviously wrong, just wrong enough she would notice. My wedding is 8 days away. Everything is set. The flowers, the venue, the food, and my revenge plan. The videographer knows what to do. My sister-in-law will spend the day feeling like a star, only to be erased, just like she did to us. For 2 years, I've seen her at family gatherings, pretending everything is fine. Now I get to return the favor. They say the best revenge is living well. I think the best revenge is giving someone exactly what they gave you. In 8 days, that's what I'm going to do. I've been working at a small tech company with only 15 employees, but we've been doing well. We create software solutions for local businesses. I started as a junior developer and worked my way up to lead the development team. I sit in on interviews when we need new talent. Last Tuesday, I was fixing a bug in our latest project when the front desk called. The receptionist asked if I could speak with someone who wanted to talk to whoever hired people, since our manager wasn't in today. I told her to send the person up. 2 minutes later, the door opened, and in walked a woman wearing a wrinkled business suit. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she carried only her phone. No portfolio, no resume, nothing. I greeted her and asked if I could help. She said she was here for a job and wanted to know who she needed to talk to. I mentioned we had a few positions open and asked if she had applied online. I explained we didn't have any interviews scheduled today. She cut me off. She said she didn't need to apply because she was already qualified. I tried explaining that everyone needs to go through our application process. I mentioned we would need to see her resume and portfolio. She interrupted me again. She said she didn't have time for paperwork and showed me her phone. On the screen was an online intelligence quotient test result. The score said 112. She pointed to her intelligence quotient score as proof of her qualifications. She added that we'd be stupid not to hire her. I told her we don't hire based on intelligence quotient scores, especially from online tests. I said we need to see experience, skills, and education. This made her more upset. She began ranting about how intelligence quotient is everything and the only true measure of intelligence. She asked whether I knew what an intelligence quotient was. Her voice grew louder, causing my co-workers to look over. I tried keeping my voice calm. I said I understood what an intelligence quotient is, but explained it's just one measure among many. She complained about how backward we were. She said in the real world, intelligence quotient is all that matters. She bragged about her 112 score. She asked if I knew how high that was and claimed it put her in the top percentage of the population. I told her the average intelligence quotient score is 100, with a standard deviation of 15. I explained 112 is only slightly above average, roughly the 79th percentile. Her face turned red. She asked how I dared question her when her test had placed her in the genius range. I explained that online tests are inaccurate and real. Intelligence quotient tests are done by professionals. She asked if I was calling her a liar. Everyone in the office had stopped working to watch. I took a breath and said I wasn't calling her a liar. I just explained that we have a hiring process everyone must follow. I offered to tell her about our open positions and how to apply. She said this was ridiculous. She said her intelligence quotient score alone should be enough. She said any company would be lucky to have someone with her brain power. When I again tried to explain our process, she'd had enough. She said she would take her talents elsewhere. She warned that our company would regret this when she was running Google or Microsoft. She stopped at the door for one final comment. She said she hadn't even wanted to work at our company anyway and was just testing us. She said we had failed. She walked out, slamming the door so hard that our company logo fell off the wall. The office was quiet for 3 seconds before everyone left. One co-worker asked if that had really just happened. Another asked if anyone had recorded it. I said I didn't know what to say. Our receptionist called a few minutes later. She said the woman had stormed past her desk, yelling about hiring practices. She wanted to know what had happened. After I explained, the story spread through the company. By lunch, even our CEO had heard about it and came to check if I was okay. The CEO asked if I had really turned down a genius. I said according to her online test, I had. We laughed, but then the CEO became more serious. He suggested we update our job listings to say we don't hire based on online intelligence quotient tests. That afternoon, he sent a company-wide email with updated hiring rules. It said online intelligence quotient tests are not valid qualification documents. 2 days later, we got a 1-star review on our social media. Someone claimed we discriminate against high intelligence quotient people and don't recognize genius. I printed it and hung it in our break room. It's now a company joke. When someone solves a tough problem, someone asks about their intelligence quotient score. It's been a month and we still laugh about it. I wonder where she went next, and if any company hired her based on her test. I doubt it. I lived in my house for 5 years now. The neighborhood is nice with good people, except for one neighbor. He complains about everything from my lawn to my mailbox. Last week, things got worse. I came home from work on Monday and found no parking in front of my house. A meeting was happening nearby, so the street was full of cars. I parked in front of my neighbor's house. It was legal street parking that anyone could use. His driveway was clear with plenty of room. They never use that spot anyway. The next morning I saw him looking at my car. I went outside to talk to him. I said hello and asked if something was wrong. He told me he was upset about my car being in front of his house. I told him all spots near my house were taken and it was public parking. He said he didn't care and that it was his spot. I explained street parking is public. He said paying property taxes meant the street was his. I tried to explain more, but he got angry. I had to go to work, so I moved my car to avoid problems. I thought it was over, but I was wrong. When I got home that evening, his SUV blocked my garage entrance. This wasn't street parking, but my private property. I walked to his house and knocked. He opened with a smile. I told him to move his car because it blocked my garage. He acted surprised and said that was too bad. I said this was private property, not like street parking. He said this was payback for parking by his house, and now I would know how it felt. I said there's a big difference between public streets and private driveways. He said he saw no difference, that I took his spot so he took mine. I warned him I'd have his car towed. He said to try, claiming he would say it was an emergency. Then he closed the door. I took pictures of his car blocking my garage and called the police. When the officer arrived, I showed him the photos. The officer said my neighbor couldn't block my driveway legally. He asked if I wanted him to talk to my neighbor first or tow right away. I said I already tried talking, but my neighbor refused, saying it was payback for street parking. The officer went to talk to my neighbor. I saw my neighbor getting upset. The officer came back and said my neighbor refused to move, so he was calling a tow truck. In 30 minutes, a tow truck came. My neighbor ran out yelling we couldn't do this, and it was harassment. The officer told him blocking a driveway was illegal, and the car was being towed. My neighbor threatened to sue while the truck took his SUV away. The officer gave him information about where to find his car and the cost. My neighbor said we'd all regret this before going inside and slamming his door. I thanked the officer who told me to keep records of problems. I went inside happy to finally park in my garage. The next day while working from home, someone knocked. It was my neighbor looking less confident. He told me I wouldn't believe what happened. I asked what he meant. He said when he went to get his car that morning, someone had crashed into it. I asked what happened. He explained someone tried to sneak into the yard without paying. They crashed through the gate and hit his SUV. The whole passenger side was wrecked. I said that was unfortunate. He added the towing company wouldn't cover it because a third party did it. The person who hit his car had no insurance. I said that's why people shouldn't park illegally, as cars might end up where bad things happen. He got angry and said this was all my fault. If I hadn't had his car towed, this wouldn't have happened. I said if he hadn't blocked my driveway, his car would be safe at home. He demanded I pay for the damage. I refused, saying he broke the law, not me. He tried to argue more, but I closed the door. I watched him walk home while talking to himself. Over the next few days, he left notes, told neighbors I damaged his car, and threatened legal action. Nothing worked because I had proof, including the police report showing he blocked my driveway. He fixed his car, but it never looked the same. More importantly, he never blocked my driveway again. He still looks at me when I'm outside but keeps his distance. I rarely park by his house now, even when spots near mine are taken. Not because I can, but because some fights aren't worth it. Unlike him, who picked a fight that cost him thousands of dollars in repairs and towing fees. Entitled people are so sure they're right they can't see when they're causing their own problems. I've always loved exploring the Chinese shops in my neighborhood in Argentina. These stores are like treasure troves, selling everything from makeup to kitchen gadgets at really good prices. There's one shop close to my house that has 2 floors packed with all sorts of interesting items. I visit pretty regularly since they often restock with new products. I started going there about 2 years ago when I moved to the area for university. I'm studying business administration, and usually have classes in the morning, which leaves my afternoons free to run errands or just browse around shops like this one. The prices fit my student budget perfectly, and I've found some really nice makeup products that don't break the bank. What's funny is that almost every time I go there, someone mistakes me for an employee. I can understand the confusion, honestly. Most of the non-Chinese staff are young adults in their 20s who dress somewhat presentably for work. And well, I happen to be in my 20s and tend to dress nicely even for casual outings. Nothing fancy, just a clean blouse, decent jeans, and maybe a touch of makeup. My mom always taught me to look put together when leaving the house, and the habit stuck. Usually, when people mistake me for staff, they'll ask a question. I'll explain I don't work there, and they apologize and move on. No harm done, but this one time, well, it was something else entirely. It was a Tuesday afternoon and I had just finished my marketing exam. I decided to reward myself with a little shopping trip to check out the new lipsticks I'd seen advertised on their social media page. I put on my headphones and was happily browsing the makeup aisle, comparing different shades of red lipstick, completely in my own world. I was crouching down to look at the items on the lower shelf when I felt something poking my back repeatedly. At first, I thought maybe I had bumped into someone, so I turned around and stood up, confused about what was happening. There was a woman standing there, probably in her 40s, with an irritated expression on her face. She was wearing an expensive-looking coat and had her arms crossed. The woman complained loudly about me wearing headphones while working. She said I hadn't heard her because of my big things, and scolded me that I shouldn't listen to music during work hours. Her tone was snippy and impatient. I was a bit startled but took off my headphones and processed what she was saying. It took me a second to realize she thought I worked there. I politely explained to her that I didn't work at the store. She responded with a dismissive laugh and insisted that I did work there. She demanded that I stop making excuses and just do my job. Her voice was getting more annoyed with each word. I tried again, explaining more clearly that I couldn't possibly do a job at a place where I had never been employed. The woman's face twisted into this expression of complete irritation. She was about to say something else, probably something rude based on her expression, when one of the actual employees approached us. She was wearing the store's distinctive red vest that I definitely wasn't wearing. The employee greeted the woman and offered her assistance. Then she turned to me and apologized for the confusion. The entitled woman looked back and forth between me and the employee. I could see the exact moment realization dawned on her face. Her cheeks turned a bit red, and she suddenly became very interested in her purse, avoiding eye contact with both of us. The funny thing is, she didn't apologize or acknowledge her mistake at all. She just turned to the employee and started asking about some product she was looking for, acting like nothing had happened. The employee politely directed the woman to follow her to find the product she needed. As they walked away, the woman didn't even look back at me. I stood there for a moment, kind of stunned by her behavior. The employee gave me an apologetic smile over her shoulder as she led the woman to another aisle. I put my headphones back on and continued shopping, but I kept replaying the incident in my head. The absolute certainty with which she had insisted I worked there, despite all evidence to the contrary, was baffling. I mean, I wasn't wearing any kind of uniform, I had headphones on, and I was clearly shopping. About 15 minutes later, while I was in the kitchen section upstairs, I spotted her again. She saw me too and quickly turned and walked in the opposite direction. When I got to the checkout counter, the employee who had helped earlier was there. The employee apologized again about the rude customer from before. She commented that some people just can't admit when they're wrong. I told her it was fine and mentioned that it happens more often than she might think. I added that at least the woman hadn't caused an even bigger scene. The employee then revealed that the woman had actually asked if I was newly hired. When the employee confirmed I was definitely a customer, the woman still seemed convinced I was somehow trying to avoid helping her. We both laughed about it, and she even gave me a small discount on my purchases as a sorry for the inconvenience gesture, which wasn't necessary but was appreciated. People are getting stupider. In 2021, my family and I moved into what we thought was our dream home. It was perfect for my terminally ill father to spend his final years with us. The house had been vacant for a while, and we got it at a good price. Unfortunately, our dream quickly turned into a nightmare because of our next door neighbor. Let's call her the encroacher. Something seemed off about the property lines. Her yard was unusually large, and the border didn't match our deeds. Being busy with moving and caring for my father, we initially ignored it. That changed when we tried landscaping near what we thought was our property line. The encroacher rushed over and demanded to know what I was doing. She claimed I was on her property. When I explained I was just planting shrubs along our property line, she insisted our property started much farther back. According to our deed, our property extended at least 20 feet further than she claimed. This disputed area included our electricity pole, garage entrance, and septic tank. I tried explaining about our deed, but she wasn't interested. She said she'd lived there for 15 years and the land had always been hers. When I tried reasoning further, she just walked away. This became a pattern. Whenever we tried accessing our septic tank or garage, she'd come out screaming and threatening to call police. My father, already weak from illness, became increasingly stressed by these confrontations. Things reached a breaking point when our septic system needed repairs. The encroacher blocked the workers from accessing it, saying it was her land and she wouldn't allow any work there. As a result, we used the porta potty in our backyard for 4 years because this entitled woman claimed our property was hers. After my father passed away, partly due to this stress, I'd had enough. The county suggested a land survey costing $12,500. Despite the expense, especially after my father's medical bills, we had no choice. The survey confirmed our suspicions. She had indeed taken about 20 feet of our property. When confronted with this evidence, she still didn't care and told me to talk to her lawyer. No lawyer ever contacted us. She was bluffing. I filed a formal complaint and hired my own lawyer. Finally, the court ruled in our favor. The judge ordered her to vacate our property and pay damages. Then the sheriff enforced the court order and she had to move her shed, remove her fence, and face reality. We reclaimed our property, fixed our septic system, and built a proper fence on the exact property line. The court ordered her to pay all our legal fees, survey costs, and damages for the years of inconvenience. I run a design-build firm with my business partner. We've been in business for almost 15 years, and we've built a reputation for creating beautiful homes. We know what we're doing. When a client wanted us to build on their land in a small community with a homeowners association, I didn't think much of it. This homeowners association is weird. It's in our small town where most people don't live in the neighborhood full-time. They don't do anything useful, like maintain common areas or organize community events. They just exist. We posted some renderings of the design on Facebook. Just a basic coming soon in Pinecrest Estates kind of post with a couple of images. There the comments started. Someone from the architecture review board for Pinecrest Estates wrote that they had concerns about our design. I knew who he was. He lived in the neighborhood maybe 2 months out of the year but acted like he owned the town. I sent him an email thanking him for his interest in our project. I told him the design wasn't submitted for permits yet. I said I'd welcome his feedback on any concerns he might have so we could address them early. No response. We continued with the design process. We had gotten a full copy of their homeowners association guidelines before we started designing. Every part of our design followed their requirements, setbacks, height restrictions, material specifications, color palette, landscaping requirements, everything. We're professionals. We do our homework. When the design was done, we submitted it to the homeowners association for review as required. Then we waited. For over 2 weeks, we heard nothing. Our client tried contacting them and was ignored. This was a multi-million-dollar home on multiple acres, and they couldn't bother to respond. Finally, we got a message from the architecture review board asking us to update the drawings with window schedules and exterior material specifications for their review. We had already included this information. We updated the drawings right away, adding even more detail, and sent them back the same day. Then more silence. This was getting ridiculous. This neighborhood has existed since the 1980s. What could they be reviewing so carefully? Our design was going to be one of the best homes in the community. It was modern but fit in, energy efficient, well proportioned, with high end materials. Any reasonable homeowners association would have been happy. Days turned into weeks. Our client was frustrated, and so were we. We were ready to start building, but we were held up by this review board that wouldn't respond. Then one of our architects found something interesting in the homeowners association documents. There was a rule saying if we didn't get either approval or disapproval within 30 days of submission, the design would be automatically approved. We decided to stop chasing them. The 30-day mark passed without any response. According to their own rules, our design was now approved. We submitted for permits with the county and got ready to begin construction. The day after the construction fencing went up, I got a call. It was someone from the Architecture Review Board, demanding to know what we were doing because they hadn't approved our plans yet. I told them that according to Section 7.3.2 of their own Homeowners Association guidelines, a submission is automatically approved if no response is provided within 30 days. I mentioned it had been 34 days since our last submission. They argued that wasn't how it worked and that they needed more time to review. I disagreed and told them that was exactly how it worked according to their rules. I offered to email them a copy of their guidelines if they needed to refresh their memory. They got more upset and said this was unacceptable and that they had serious concerns about the design. I reminded them that I had reached out multiple times for feedback, which they didn't provide. I explained that our client had already experienced delays and extra costs because of this process, and we were going forward according to the rules they created. The conversation ended with them threatening to call an emergency meeting of the board. I said they were welcome to do that, but we would be breaking ground the next day, as planned. The next day, 3 members of the Architecture Review Board showed up at the site. They were standing outside the construction fence, arms crossed, looking ready for a fight. I walked over with my folder of documentation. They told us to stop construction immediately, mentioning concerns about the roof pitch and window placement. I handed them copies of our original submission, which fully complied with their guidelines, documentation of all our attempts to get their feedback, a highlighted copy of Section 7.3.2 regarding automatic approval after 30 days, and our approved county permit. I told them they had their chance to provide input, multiple chances, and now we were building this home according to the approved plans. When they protested that they never approved it, I reminded them that their own rules had approved it for them. Then I excused myself, saying we had work to do. They stood there as I walked away. They tried to escalate it, sending threatening letters about fines and legal action. But our documentation was solid. They had no case. The house is nearly complete now. It's gorgeous, the most beautiful home in the neighborhood. Several other homeowners have asked us about designing for them too. The Architecture Review Board has suddenly become very responsive to submissions. I was about 7 years old when this happened. I was a fat kid but never anything seriously unhealthy. Most of the kids in our afternoon program were skinny except me and this other girl who was a bit overweight like me. I think I was bigger than her. We would have supper every evening and sometimes we would have a side of tangerines that came from a can and its juices. Most people eat tangerines with their hands, right? The skinny girls were eating them with their hands too, so I did what children do and copied them. The afternoon teacher told me I ate like a pig, eating with my hands. At first it didn't bother me because it went over my head, but I told my mom when she picked me up. I told her that the teacher said I ate like a pig for eating with my hands. My mom got angry. She told me she would talk to the coordinator about it. The next day my mom went to the school and talked to the coordinator. I wasn't there when they talked, but mom told me later she was very upset. That day at the program, the coordinator asked me to tell her what the teacher said to me. I felt nervous but told her the teacher called me a pig for eating tangerines with my hands. She asked if other kids were eating the same way. I said yes, everyone was. She asked if the teacher said this to anyone else. I didn't know and just shrugged. The coordinator thanked me and told me I did nothing wrong. Later, I heard the coordinator talking to another teacher when they didn't see me nearby. The coordinator said the teacher also said something mean to the other chubby girl. She said this wasn't the first time they had problems with this teacher making comments about kids. The other teacher asked what would happen. The coordinator said they can't have someone working with children who makes kids feel bad about their bodies. She said she already talked to the director about it. I didn't see that teacher for a few days. When she came back, she was just getting her things. She said hi to every kid except me. She wouldn't even look at me. During snack time, I heard two teachers talking quietly. One teacher said she couldn't believe the other teacher got fired over what she said. The second teacher said it wasn't just what she said to me, but she also called the other chubby girl Butterball when she asked for more food. The first teacher thought losing a job over it was too much. The second teacher said the director doesn't allow that kind of behavior. A few days later, I asked Mom if the teacher was coming back. Mom said no, the program fired her. I asked if it was because of what she said to me. Mom said partly yes, and she also said mean things to another girl. Mom told me teachers should help children feel good, not make them feel bad. For a while, I felt bad about the teacher losing her job. I just told my mom what happened and didn't want to cause trouble. Mom told me I did the right thing by telling her when an adult said something that hurt my feelings. She said the teacher was supposed to take care of me, not shame me. The new teacher who replaced her was much nicer. She never said anything about how we ate or what we ate. She was kind to all the kids. Looking back now, I'm glad my mom stood up for me. No child should feel bad for just eating food normally. It's strange to think about now, an adult picking on 7-year-old kids because of their weight. She made mean comments about normal behavior just because we were chubby. That teacher lost her job, but I learned something important. Some adults can be more childish than the children they're teaching. When people think they can shame kids because of how they look, they sometimes get what they deserve. I'm a 20-year-old college student living with my parents to save money. My dad made friends when he studied abroad 15 years ago. They keep in touch through social media and visits. Last week, one of Dad's old friends came to our country for business. He brought his 11-year-old daughter, saying she could experience a different culture. My dad told me to be her tour guide without asking if I was free. At dinner, Dad asked if I could take his friend's daughter to the National Museum tomorrow. He said it would help her practice art appreciation. I said yes because I didn't have classes. The next morning, I met them at their hotel. The father wore an expensive suit ready for his meeting. He told me to take care of his daughter and said the museum sounded interesting. I told him I would make sure she had a good time. The girl barely looked up from her phone and gave a half-hearted wave. After her father left, she showed her true attitude. I told her we had 30 minutes before the museum opened and asked if she was excited. She said it would be boring and complained about her dad making her go. I tried telling her about the interactive section where visitors could try different art techniques. She just said whatever. We walked to the museum and waited at the entrance. Some people were already in line. The girl kept sighing and rolling her eyes every few minutes. She pointed at a nearby cafe and said she was thirsty. She didn't ask for coffee, she demanded it. When I worried about her age and coffee, she told me she drank it all the time, and her dad let her have lattes. She said buying her coffee was the least I could do before making her look at boring stuff for 2 hours. I still wasn't sure which made her angry. I told her I wanted to check with her father first. Her face scrunched up. She asked if I thought she was lying. I called her father. I said sorry for bothering him during his meeting and explained about the coffee. He paused, then said yes in a sharp tone. He asked if I thought his daughter was a liar. I didn't know what to say. I told him I just wanted to make sure and said sorry for bothering him. He told me to trust what his daughter says next time and hung up. The girl told me she wanted an oat milk latte, extra hot. I walked to the cafe feeling embarrassed. The coffee cost nearly $8 for her fancy drink, but I paid without complaining. She didn't thank me, just took the cup and sipped it looking smug. When the museum opened, I tried to be enthusiastic about the exhibits. The museum had ancient artifacts on loan with interactive displays explaining their history. I showed her pottery that was over 3,000 years old, with patterns showing daily life back then. She called it boring and asked to leave early. I reminded her we just got there and suggested seeing the main exhibits at least. She complained that her dad said I would show her a good time and this wasn't fun. Nothing worked. Every attempt to interest her met with disinterest or disdain. She kept checking her phone and sighing, clearly wanting to be somewhere else. Halfway through our tour, she bumped into another visitor, making them stumble. Instead of saying sorry, she looked at me expectantly. I said sorry to the visitor, who nodded and walked away. Her behavior made me uncomfortable. She then complained her feet hurt and wanted to sit. When I mentioned the bench in the next room, she refused. She wanted to go to the museum cafe for cake. I told her we just had coffee and the cafe was overpriced. She called me cheap and said her dad would buy it for her. My patience was wearing thin. I suggested finishing this section first, then getting something small from the cafe. She told me I was the worst guide ever. After 2 long hours of complaints, we finished the museum tour. I felt exhausted from trying to be positive while dealing with her attitude. We went back to her hotel. I was glad it was almost over. Her father was in the lobby. I expected a friendly goodbye, but he barely noticed me. He asked if she enjoyed the museum. She lied that it was boring and I wouldn't buy her cake after making her walk for hours. I was shocked but didn't know how to defend myself without seeming childish. He just said I see and thanked me, his tone cold. He didn't look at me. I left feeling confused and upset. That evening I told my dad what happened. He said not to worry, some people raise their kids differently. I told him I didn't do anything wrong and was just being responsible about the coffee. He agreed but explained some parents get offended when you question their parenting. He told me to let it go. The next day, Dad told me his friend wanted a more experienced guide for his daughter. He claimed I was too controlling and didn't know how to handle children. I felt hurt but also relieved to avoid spending more time with them. A week later, I saw on social media they hired a professional tour guide who cost over $200 per day. In the photos, the girl looked just as bored and entitled as was me, but at least I wasn't dealing with it. Some people find fault in others to avoid seeing flaws in themselves or their parenting. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.